Welcome back to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to say thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to say thank you to our platinum sponsors, including Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Gilman Gear, always a step ahead. And Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is a good friend, Roger Mayo. Roger's a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the director of athletics for the Escambia County Public School System in the Pensacola, Florida area up in the Panhandle. Roger, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Jake. Looking forward to it. Appreciate you having me on here.
Well, we were joking earlier, we're not dodging any hurricanes right now in the Panhandle, so things are good. Let's go and jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and how your love of athletics maybe led to this career in athletics.
Well, let's see. Okay, I was born in North Alabama, up in Gadsden, up there, but was 3 months old when my family moved to Florida. So I am basically Florida in nature because of that. But we went through O'Galley for about 8 years, Fort Walton Beach for a couple of years, back to O'Galley for a couple, and spent some time in Mississippi in middle school. And actually, all my vacations were in North Alabama, where relatives were at, but didn't live there until junior year of high school. So I only had 2 years up there, but I was a four-sport, play it all, because if I couldn't kick it, hit it, catch it, throw it, I didn't have nothing to do with going up like a lot of other people in this business, and so, I went from football to basketball, where I was kind of the hatchet man, and, but then did, baseball and even track at the same time. So I, like I said, that was my life. When I graduated, I couldn't make a decision which I loved the most, football or baseball. So I ended up going to the University of Georgia on a scholarship so I could play both sports, because honestly, I wanted to go to Alabama, but a guy named Bear Bryant said I couldn't play baseball there until I was a junior in college. He said, you give me 2 years and I'll let you try for baseball. So I chose Georgia because they convinced me I could do both sports. So that's where I went. Played there for a year, lettered in baseball as a freshman, and came back my sophomore year and was told that was it. I was football only. So I ended up leaving there and went to play baseball at Jacksonville State, which is, in North Alabama. It's a big baseball school, and played 3 years there, drafted a couple of times, very, very fortunate, and ended up being a graduate assistant for a couple of years. And that was that. First job, I ended up being a superintendent of recreation in Gadsden, and that gave me some administrative responsibilities, working a lot of budgets and facilities and employees, but that was short-lived because I knew I wanted to get back into coaching. And so that was my first coaching job, was up there at a school in North Alabama, and did that. But then opportunity came up, helped with a situation, went through a divorce like a lot of people have, and felt like I should get out of town. And so I ended up coming to Pensacola and taking a job at Escambia High School, and working for a guy named Dwight Thomas. Some of you might remember that name from down here, but was a pretty doggone good football coach because we handed it and pitched it and tossed it to a guy named Emmett. And so I got to coach him my first year there and thought I was really a good football coach that time. So, but that was short-lived because, you know, it didn't take long. I realized that baseball is where my heart was and ended up, you know, taking the baseball job there a year later and actually was very fortunate. Won a state championship my third season there. And I mean, the rest was history. They had me stuck. I ended up there 30 years as a baseball coach, you know, 600 plus wins. But along the way, I had a chance to become the athletic director. And I was willing and able to do that while teaching 5 Algebra 2 classes at the same time. So I've been down that road and have a lot of good stories on it, but that's kind of where that all got started.
Well, it's always great to hear these, you know, stories, these journeys of everyone. You know, I got to know you, you know, these last few years through FIAAA, and I knew you'd been quite a baseball coach. And I think you had mentioned that you got to coach Emma Smith for just a little bit. I think every football coach would have liked that opportunity, but just great to hear, you know, how we got to where we got to. Roger, you already mentioned a couple of your mentors, and in our business, leadership and mentoring are just so important. But who are some of the other people that you would count as mentors in your career?
Well, of course, I think as all of us, you know, starts with family, starts with your parents. You know, my parents taught me to love. They trained me to respect, and they demonstrated commitment. You know, that's 3 things I think that helped mold what I became today, you know, and I think we're lacking in that today. I think that's a problem we all face is from coaches, administrators, where the tables aren't quite the same now as what they used to be. And so I'm very, very thankful for them. I was very fortunate. I had a lot of great coaches I played for that taught me a lot about the game and how to love the game. But as far as actual mentors, you know, of course, the baseball coach at Jacksonville State was a tremendous fundamentalist. Everybody that has ever played for him and went on has been very successful in the coaching ranks. Many of them are Hall of Fame type guys now. And of course, so I thank him for that. And then of course, Dwight Thomas probably was one of the best mentors I've ever seen as far as coaching, because he spent his entire career coaching coaches. And, you know, I learned a lot from that. You know, he taught them to love their players and how to do a lot of things other than just X's and O's. And I think that's important. But as far as being the athletic administrator side of it, I mean, I didn't have a clue what I was getting into when I took it, other than I knew basically what the basic work was, you know, eligibility, you know, organizing a few things here and there. But well, I learned in a hurry. And I will say I don't want to skip anybody because there's been so many, but that, you know, FIAAA has been was a godsend to my career. But I guess the first 3 that really stuck out to me were, you know, Lannis Robinson, Andy Childs, and Russell Wombles. And I mean, just on and on and on. But those are 3 guys that didn't hesitate to, you know, to share and to give back, and, you know, just to demonstrate the servitude of what FIAAA is all about. And I've been very thankful for them. But I could name 100 guys, you know, in my time. So it's been very important.
You know, those names are very familiar to anybody involved in Florida athletics, and could certainly, you know, list those 3 as helping me in my career as well. Roger, you know, you were an AD there in Pensacola at your own school, and now you're the county, the district AD, overseeing several high schools. What are some things that you feel that your coaches and your schools in Escambia do particularly well? You know, as you look around the state or the country, you know, you can just say with pride, you know, well, we really do a great job with this.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, you know, knowing a little bit of the background, because, you know, we're not one of the largest ones, but we're, you know, in the middle of the pack. You know, we've got 42,000 students, and average about 4,000 to 5,000 athletes on a high school level, or another 2,500 on the middle school level. So we're decent size, but our athletic directors here teach full loads of classes. So it's a real struggle, and I especially this year with what we've gone through, I applaud them tremendously, because they've bought into how important it is to do things in an organized fashion, and to do things set ways, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is instill processes to be able to follow and do those things, but to be able to do it with little and no help, and teaching the kind of class that some of them still coaching, has been a very, very tremendous thing. And I think it just kind of accentuates how important it is to have that process and procedure. In fact, a couple of things off my bucket list this year, we were able to go to, online registration with all of our athletes, with cashless ticketing, digital ticketing. And we were able to implement all of that in about a 2-week period, after getting all this COVID, this virus situation. That helped us with as a lot of other schools have done, the social distancing, and be able to, keep people separated and do some good things that way.
That's interesting. Let's go and jump into, the COVID response. As we've been doing these interviews, it's just been amazing to see the variety of responses around the country. Some states have completely shut down athletics. Others have moved the seasons around, baseball in the fall and football in the spring. And, in Florida, we've seen, our own response. We delayed for a month, and then, some schools, readily reopened, anxiously reopened, and others are just now reopening as we speak. So share with our listeners, what's happening in Pensacola as far as, return to play, as well as, return to school.
Well, we were one of those that initially we were all in to get started back, and somewhere along the line, our leadership, I guess, rethought their situation, and looked at the facts a little stronger, and using, as you well know, county by county had, depending on what county you talk to, they had a different set of rules. There was nothing definitive out there to follow. So you started just gathering all these things up and trying to adapt it to what it looked like for your local area, and do the best thing possible. And we actually ended up delaying the start of athletics. We did start back to on-campus, workouts and things like that. But we did what most people did: the small pods, the temperature scans, the answering the questions, and following that, and working, one coach per all day long with the same kid. We did all those type of things. We didn't go into weight rooms. We didn't go into locker rooms. So everything we did was outdoor activities. We tried to keep it, that, and then we did get back in. And then when it came time, the state opened back up, when to play, our leadership, we voted we didn't start back until 26th of September. So we put our sports off for another month too. Our thing was, we started school. They wanted to start school for a couple of weeks before we started playing games, to see what was going to happen with the starting of school. And we've been very fortunate, other than losing 2 weeks to a hurricane, of which we've been able to make up some of that. We've done really well, but this last 3 weeks, I don't know if you call it the new breakouts, or whatever you want to call it, but we've had a couple of the schools in Santa Rosa and Okaloosa County that have had to shut down, in which some of our teams were playing them, and now we currently have a program shut down here that's ended practices or anything at all to do with sports for the next week and a half at least, to try to hopefully which will allow them a chance to get into the playoffs when time comes. So they feel like they shut down now, maybe they'll have a chance later on. So that's where we're at now. So but we still are doing the same things. We have open locker rooms up. We've we do have, like the home team gets to go in there for, dress 12 to 15 at a time, and then they leave and more come in, but we aren't opening up visiting locker rooms on Friday nights. They're coming to the game dressed. We provide restroom facilities, and they stay on the field at halftime. At the end of the game, they're on a bus getting out of there. So we're still keeping, the locker room things under control as much as possible. And just as you think about maybe, opening up some of this stuff, then you start seeing these things happening again. So, I mean, I don't think there's any right and wrong way of doing it. I think you just have to do what works best for your area. There are areas that are less impacted, and they're doing fine with it. But, Pensacola is a very transient town, a lot of big military town, but we also have situations. And so we've had, we haven't had many positive cases, but what we have has been in the older communities and some of our older facilities like that. It's made us look worse than what it did, but we're hopefully all in this together and doing the best we can.
Have your teams had to cancel any games internally? I know other schools, in the Panhandle, have had to cancel games for their own reasons, but have you guys had to cancel any?
We just did this week. We've had 2 cancellations when we were playing out of county teams that had situations that we had to cancel for that. But we now have one of our schools that is shut down today. They played an out of county school 2 weeks ago, and now we have a couple positive cases at that particular school, even one cheerleader from that. And I think they trying to look back at that game played versus that opponent. So we've now shut them down today.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. As we record this, it's the final week of October, and we're in Florida. We're getting ready to transition into winter sports, which is primarily soccer, boys and girls soccer, and boys and girls basketball. What are some things that you are already doing now with your schools in planning for those sports to take off?
Well, same type situation where we're going to limit the use of the locker rooms as much as possible. We're going to try to do some, social distancing in our seating capacities in our gyms. Right now we're looking at starting with 50%, starting in there, and we're still, we're going to still kind of maintain what we've been doing in football as far as concessions. Trying to regulate what kind of things we're doing in concession stands. We're following all the protocol of what FHSA has sent out as far as winter sports, and the officials have sent out as far as making some adjustments with the basketball and the pregame tip, and several things. We're going to try to follow along and do as much as we can on that. We're still going to try to limit travel to within our three county area up here, and anything beyond that will be a case by case basis that we might let anybody travel, but. So we're going to try to do some of that as best we can.
Well, Roger, another question we've been asking our EDs has had to do with this idea of, social awareness and social justice. Last spring, the tragic events in Minneapolis and Atlanta, and then, a couple months ago in Wisconsin. My question has been this: what are some things that we can do as athletic directors, with our stakeholders, with our communities? What are some things that we can do better in this area of social awareness?
I think probably the biggest thing that we can do is really work harder on teaching our athletes how to respect each other, teaching our athletes how to support each other. I don't think you have to bring up, any one thing as far as certain race, certain this, anything else. It's just, we're all in this thing together. You're out there fighting for a common goal. And I think that's the great part about athletics to begin with. That's what a lot of us do this for, is because, you can't teach the intangibles in a classroom that you teach on an athletic field or on an athletic court. And so I think it's a perfect place for us to be able to, to address that and work with our student athletes on that. I think that's probably the greatest reason why many of us do what we do as far as education-based sports, because it's the one place, I taught a lot of years in the classroom, and I never got to talk about things in the classroom. I could talk about my locker room out in the middle of the outfield somewhere. So I think that's part of why we do what we do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very good thoughts. Let's go and shift gears a little bit. I know you're district AD now, so one question I've been asking is, what's your favorite part of the job? And as athletic directors, should say, oh, it's the kids. I love being around the kids. And I know, maybe in the district office you don't get that as much as you used to. But what are some of your favorite aspects about being the county AD? What gets you excited about coming to work each day?
Mentoring coaches. I think, there's a lot of things here that you can talk about. How do you measure success of a coach? Some people might talk about wins and losses. To me, the true success of a coach is longevity. How long he stays there, how long he does what he does. And that doesn't happen by accident. There's a lot of things go into that, communication skills, from dealing with, one of the things I push really hard with coaches is dealing with parents. All these new coaches come up and, this is the way it's going to be. I don't want to tell you, I'm not going to talk about playing time. I'm not going to deal with parents. I'm not going to do that. Well, unfortunately, if you're going to be a successful coach, you're going to have to do those things. There's no way around it without it. And so, I try to tell them, coaches love their players. They want the best for their players. Parents love their kids, and they want the best for their kids. And if you can't work together for a common goal, then you don't need to be doing what you're doing. Doesn't mean, you still call the shots and you still run the show. But you need to make parents become your supporters, not your adversaries. And I think the biggest thing with that is teaching them, better communication skills, just teach them a lot of things about setting goals, be transparent with those goals, make sure your parents know. But going back to your first question is, seeing a young coach start becoming successful, to me, I don't get to coach those kids anymore and see the twinkle in his eye when he does something really good for the first time. But I get to see those coaches. And I think if we're not doing that, education-based sports is in for a long, hard fight. Because if we're not developing young coaches, the days of the guy staying for 30 years may not be there as much anymore because of all the challenges they have in today's society and all the challenges put on it from the teaching aspect of it as well. What they have to do is not just come to school and coach anymore. Now they have to actually teach their tail off and do a good job there too. So it's a different world when it comes to those things as well.
But it's so very important. I'm really glad that you shared that. Very good stuff. Well, Roger, you and I get to see each other quite a bit. We're both on the board of directors for FIAAA. It was certainly my honor, is my honor to have followed you, as the president of this great organization. But we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the new athletic director's toolbox. You've been an athletic director for quite a few years, but right now I'm tasking you with sending out a brand new AD on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Roger Mayo's athletic director toolbox?
Wow, that's a challenge in itself right there. Okay, I guess probably my number one thing that I would teach a new AD is to listen more than you speak. You need to find out you need to learn about the people you're dealing with. You need to learn about your community. You need to learn about your athletes. And you don't get that by sitting there talking all the time. And so I think sometimes new ADs think that, they got to go in there and start immediately being the boss. But And I guess one thing that sets that apart is that I had an administrator one time make a statement that any coach can become an AD. Well, that's, in my opinion, just definitely not true. There's a lot of assistant coaches don't make good head coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of good head coaches that don't make administrators. And so I think that a lot of that comes from the fact that, they just don't want to listen and they don't want to pay attention. So I think that's a big thing. I think probably number two is learn to be yourself. Yes, mentorship is huge. It's everything. I think if you got to establish a network, you got to get with some people. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's the whole purpose of, I could talk for hours on what FIAAA meant to me and what I've learned from them. And it's all about that, setting up that network of help out there. And so you got to be willing to reach out to those people and get that. And again, that's all part of that listening thing. Nobody's good enough to go up there and just dominate, do it, or you're gonna set yourself up for failure. I guess that's a lot of things in one. But next thing I think is, and I read this somewhere many, many years ago, and I've kind of tried to adopt it as one of my main things. And I wished I'd remember who initially said it. But I think that I think the greatest predictor of success is how well you use what I call OPE, which is other people's experiences. And again, that sets apart what, there's probably nothing happens to an athletic director that hadn't happened to somebody somewhere before. And that's the important part about it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Take that information, adapt it to your own personality, but be yourself. And so I think, listen, don't speak, be yourself. And then this may be off the wall from what some people would say, but, and this is just a personal belief of mine, because a lot of people may not agree with it, but I say, don't be hypocritical. I've never had a coach yet that I haven't listened to him at some point in time in his career talk to his players about trying to get better, talk to his players about going to showcases and camps and getting private instructors and private lessons, and they push it. And then at some point in time, I asked that coach, I said, so how many of those things are you doing? If you're not willing to do them, why are you sitting there telling them to do it? You already alluded to the fact, yes, I'm a short timer now. I've done my due. I was fortunate enough to be president, and now I'm a past president, on my way out of service, I guess. But I still take classes, and I have people ask me, say, why you take these classes? And I said, for the simple fact, I'm never too old to learn, and nobody ever accused me of telling them or recommended them to take a class, go to a workshop, go to a conference, if I'm not doing it myself. So I just think that that's part of silent leadership, and I think that's kind of what, that's, people have been around me, I'm not a big talker. Today I'm setting an example, a different one, but I think you have to listen. I think you don't be hypocritical, and I think you rely on other people's experiences to help you do your job.
I think that's a great toolbox. And again, the listening part, I wish that would have been given to me much earlier in my career. Great advice. Okay. Well, Roger, thanks so much for visiting with us today. Best of luck as you wrap up your fall sports and on into the rest of the year.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to a time we can get back together.
Yeah, hopefully that'll be our next board meeting in January. But, to our listeners, thanks as always for tuning in. Remember, the video version of this will be posted on the Educational Athletic YouTube channel. So continue to listen to the podcast as well as watch us on YouTube. Thanks again for coming. We'll see you on the next episode of the Educational AD.